Yo, what's up, good people? This is African Traveler. So it's been a minute since I shared something with you guys, and today I thought of sharing something interesting. It's about nationalism in the continent of Africa compared to other nations in the world. And the topic will be focused mostly with my personal idea, my personal experience in life. And please feel free to share, feel free to discuss, feel free to put your point in the comment section. So let me just define what nationalism is. So from the dictionary, I went online and I just checked some definition for nationalism for clear understanding for everyone, so that when I discuss about this topic, it's clear what I'm discussing about. And yeah. So nationalism is the identification with one's own nation. Identification with one's own nation and support to the exclusion of interests of other nations. Like, you support your country, you don't care, like if you're given 3, 4, 5 items to choose, or different 5 countries you choose, or a continent, the first thing that you choose is your country over anything else. So that is nationalism, that you put the interests of your nation or your continent, of your people, above everything else. So let me go to the next definition of nationalism. It says it's advocacy, or is the support for the political independence of a particular nation or people. Let me just repeat: support for the political independence of a particular nation or people. Okay, so nationalism, I believe, goes hand in hand with patriotism, because let me just define patriotism. It's the quality of being patriotic to a vigorous support for one's country. So now my topic is into this, and the reason why I want to share this is with the small life, or with the small experience I have in this life. I've been lucky to work with different organizations. I've been lucky to work with all the races, if not all, but most of. Like, I've worked with Asians. This means I've worked with Indians, I've worked with Chinese, I've worked with the whites, and not whites from just one country. I've worked with French, I've worked with British, Americans. I've been lucky to work with. I had the opportunity to work with these different races, and I can tell you for one thing for sure. One thing that is killing the African continent in terms of nationalism is greed. Greediness is what is killing the nationalism of an African continent. Now, why am I saying this? Like, I will use my country for example. We've had different times whereby, let me just use a real example. There's a time military police uniforms were supposed to be made locally, manufactured locally, with our raw materials, with a human resource. But there's a few people who had negotiated for bigger deals with Chinese and I think Thailand, and they wanted to kill the local production so that they can import the same product from China. And this is the reason why, because they felt that if you import from China or Thailand, I have my cut. You discuss with something that if I buy goods worth this amount of billions, I get my share. That is one example. The second thing is sugar industry in Kenya. Sugar industry has been killed by very few people, And the reason why I'm saying this is the interest for this is for very few people who killed an industry that support millions of families. So the sugar industry, it's so easy to import sugar from Brazil, from, I don't know, Mexico, from wherever country they bring it, the sugar from. Now, the reason why these politicians are doing this is because they don't have plantation for sugar, okay? They don't have industry to manufacture. So for us, we'd rather kill it and import it from one country. Now, when you import, like, the consumption of sugar in the country is huge. So imagine a person importing, let's say, like 10 million metric tons of sugar, and you're making interest on each bag. It's quite a huge amount of money for them, and but the impact that has on the society is crazy, because a lot of families are going to suffer because of unemployment. The economy is not going to gain, because as much as you import is an extra, is like taking your cash and giving it to someone else. So it's really killing the stability of the currency also in the country. The other point I also wanted to discuss is about the maize. The country, Kenya, has one of the biggest consumers of maize flour. Like our staple food is maize meal. Let me just use maize meal. Something we call the maize flour, which we make ugali. Ugali is our staple food in Kenya. So earlier years we used to be stable in terms of maize production in our farmland, but later on it changed. So we started importing maize from Zambia, then started going to Brazil, Mexico, and other countries. And the sad part is, like this year, about 2-3 months ago, these cartels who import these items, refused to buy the maize meal from the farmers. They were saying that there's not enough maize in the country, yet farmers are holding tons and tons of maize in the country. And the bitter part of it is the price of maize meal per bag in the country is supposed to be around, the government wanted to buy from the maize farmers at around 2,500 or 2,300. And the maize farmers were really lamenting about this. Like, the price is really bad, because if we calculate the capital invested in producing the bag of maize is really expensive. If we sell at that price, we're not going to make any coin. Now, when these guys imported the maize from other countries, the government is buying the same maize at around 3,400. So, and you wonder, where is our nationalism? Would you rather support items from a different continent, or would you rather grow your own? Now let me come now with my work experience, and this is where I say corruption is not an African thing. Corruption is not a race thing. Corruption is an individual thing. But I can tell you for sure, yes, in Africa we have corruption, but all over the world there's corruption. In one company that I worked, it was really mixed, and we had really tight regulation in terms of meeting suppliers, meeting vendors. You cannot have lunch with the supplier, you cannot have this. Everything was really, clean and controlled. And for us Kenyans, especially because it was a company in Kenya, we used to be very straight, because the regulations were really high. The ethical standard was really high. And so there's one time a key principal of one company invited a couple of guys for dinner, and I was included. And I told them, no, we don't do dinner with our suppliers. The only thing that we can do is we have to make it official. We have to tell the management so that we can go and do this and that. And the guy was really bitter and said, look, I'm not calling you to bribe you, I just want to have a relationship with you guys. And he told them, no, this is not allowed here. So later on, the guy, I don't know, he asked for my personal number and called me. And he told me, I want to tell you something. And I came here. He was a principal for one of the companies that we deal in, and the head office is in Europe. So he told us, and so he told me, look, some of your bosses are really corrupt. We pay them to deal with you guys. They've opened offshore accounts whereby we pay them through the offshore account. So you'll never be able to track the amount of money. And our bosses at then were mostly different races, right? And with the discussion, we really discussed a lot of items, and from that time I realized that how people play corruption at a different level. In Africa, we just do it upfront, like on the face. Some people will do it in a different way. And corruption is not a good thing. End of the day, is it big or is it small? Corruption is just bad. There's no good name to corruption. So the point is, and the companies that I worked in, wherever the boss was a British, he pushed, like he would change all the raw materials, all the equipment will come from England. There's a time we got a French GM, and everything started coming from France with time. And it's the same thing when you see the roads, the roads being constructed in Africa. You see the machines that are being done by the Chinese, the lorries, everything come from China. Even if it were possible, they will also bring the soil and the rocks from China, but they bring everything from China. There's a company building roads from Japan. You see the trucks, the brands, all of it from China, from Japan. So what I'm trying to say is, all people are corrupt. Like, I can tell you for sure, like, all races are corrupt. But the problem with African corruption is we are so greedy. We don't even value our country. Like, how would you kill your country? How do you kill a production from your country and prefer to come from another continent? That is the level of stupidity I never understood. Like, all these other races, the Asian, the whites, they are corrupt, but they've put the interest of their country first. And that is one thing I learned. Like, the Japanese will make sure, like, if I come to a company and the company is taking products from China, with time you'll see all those products coming from Japan. Regardless is being paid, regardless is getting anything, but the interest of the country is number one, and that is something Africans we don't have, and that's something we need to change. It's a really bitter thing that I feel our leaders are really letting us down. My sentiment mostly goes to our leaders, but end of the day, our leaders are a reflection of us. That is the bottom line. The leaders never take themselves to the office. And that is where I really respect leaders like Kagame. Kagame is putting interest of his country number one, regardless. Whenever I see his meetings around the world, he's always like, Africa first, and Kigali is at the key of the core of it. Rwanda is the core of it. And that is the leaders we need here. In countries like mine, probably the president has the nationalism, but the people around him wants to destroy everything that he's really trying to create. And that probably is the same across the African continent. We have greedy leaders that we really need to kick them out. And yeah, so guys, and let me hear your sentiments, and share, subscribe, and like. So leave a comment and tell me what will help the African continent change this narrative, because we really need it to change. That we value our continent first, that we value our nations first before anything else. And that is why you see people like Donald Trump, as much as people hate him, like, he's putting sanctions to China, he's putting the interests of Americans first. I don't care if he's bad, he's good, the interest of America is number one. Probably it's the same reason we have Brexit, because they're putting their interest first before anyone else. They don't care if it's the interest first. Probably repercussion will come in any decision you make, but at least there's something that you show that it's our country first before anything else. So be a great nationalist in your country. And from me, I would say, peace out.